Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Dorr. I am ISA's Director of Professional Development, and today we are in the second event of our academic career series called Academic Job Search, Considerations, and Alignment. So today we're here with Kim Gruder. She is the Assistant Director of Graduate Student and Postdoc Career Services. She's going to take you through some slides and some discussion questions. If at any point you have any sorts of technical issues or any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. And we have a relatively manageable size group today. So if participants would like to speak, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can ask Kay questions directly as well. So Kay, I will start the recording and hand it over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Sarah. First, I just want to say that I'm really delighted to present to ISA membership today. It's an organization that I didn't really know so much about. And so what's wonderful when you're asked to present, you also get to learn. And I've really enjoyed talking with Sarah and learning more about the organization. This session is about a component of academic job search, which focuses on considerations and alignment. You might know alignment as maybe like fit, like institutions that maybe you have a fit with, or a role that you have a fit with. I really like to think of it as alignment as kind of this broader concept, and not really just focus on fit, because we know that some people may not be a perfect fit, but they may be well aligned and be a great candidate. I also want to acknowledge that when we're thinking about alignment and considerations, that what we're really thinking about is like having choices and being able to make decisions. And I recognize that, you know, the ability, the room to be able to make choices and decisions often comes from a place of privilege or being in a community of privilege. And that sometimes we just need to take a job, right? We don't have sort of this luxury of being able to really consider this or that. So I want to acknowledge that with you. But additionally, what we know is when applicants are well aligned for a position, that they usually can succeed very well in the position. They usually have a good sense of confidence. They're usually able to sustain and also grow their opportunities while they're in the position. And what we know when there is lack of alignment is that people feel a lot of discomfort. And it's kind of like having a rock in your shoe, you know, it's like, you know, it's there all the time. And it's just kind of an annoyance and it kind of wears you down. So what we know is when there isn't alignment, that there will be discomfort. And with discomfort, over time, what you're doing is typically not sustainable. And it also contributes often to a poor sense of self and an eroding sense of confidence, and then sometimes even some feelings of kind of hopelessness in one's roles. So this is why alignment is important to think about when you can think about it. So I just want to kind of set the stage for kind of where we're headed here with this. So our main topics, we're going to focus on areas of alignment. We're going to focus on factors that can influence alignment, tools and approaches for being informed. This is really important, this like being informed part. and then some considerations and tips. And this is kind of all woven in together. It's not that we're going to really go through these sections in a distinct way. You'll see what I mean when we get started. So I do have a question for you. And again, feel free to type in chat or feel free to raise a hand. And my question is, when you think about alignment and you think about like an academic job in your future, or perhaps you have an academic position now, like what comes to mind? What are some of the areas of your existence in which like you would want alignment? So I'm kind of being a little vague here, but I'd love you to kind of jump in with a response. So what comes to mind when you think of alignment, areas of your life, areas of your work in which you would want alignment? So I see work-life balance. Yeah. I like to think of that as work-life integration, just because I don't believe that balance occurs or can occur. So just a little reframe on that, work-life integration. Anything else comes to mind here? Just looking at chat. Where you show up every day, right? The quality of the environment that you're in, alignment between my values and the institution's values. Awesome. Yep, good relations with colleagues. Love this. Excellent. Just give another couple seconds. Okay. You can keep typing in there if you want. So for purposes of today, we're going to think about alignment really in these several areas: institution and department, geographic area, local community, position, and future plans. And so what I really love is when I look at chat, a lot of you are already thinking in ways that fall into one or more of these areas. So we're just going to do a little kind of deeper dive into these areas so that really you maybe gain a sense or enhance your sense of kind of the considerations as you think about alignment in these areas. So let's get into alignment with the institution and department. Today, I'm really speaking within the context of the US. And within the US, we have what are called the Carnegie Classification System of institutions. And it basically divides institutions into 5 major categories: research, comprehensive, liberal arts, community and technical, and then some specialized institutions. And you can go into the Carnegie classification site and you can do searches and see which institutions fall into which classifications. And then there are some other fields that you can, filters that you can use in searching in terms of the size of the institution and whether it focuses on the arts or maybe STEM. So it's just a kind of a good first point of contact for individuals that are trying to get a handle on, okay, well, what are the R1 research universities in the United States? Which are the R2 research universities in the US, and so forth. So it's a great tool. I find that when I'm working with students, they may say to me something like, I'm looking for jobs at liberal arts colleges, and I know what I know the ones that I know, but the US is a large place. I don't know beyond that. So what can I do? Where can I go to find information? Or sometimes I'll be working with an international student, and they may say, like, I know the University of Connecticut is an R1 university, but I really don't know what other R1 universities are out there. So again, this is just a really useful tool within the US to expand one's knowledge of the institutions that exist and really what their primary educational focus is. As we look at institutions, we can kind of look at institutions and departments in a number of different ways, right? You can go to a department's website and you can start to get a feel of how they talk about the work they're doing in the department, or their vision for their students as learners and as citizens. When you go into a department's website, at least within the US, you can usually find a minimum, a bio of a faculty members in a department. You can often see the CVs of the faculty members in the department. And so, by looking at that information, you're also kind of starting to get a feel for, like, who are my colleagues going to be, right? Colleagues came up as one of the areas of alignment. Couple other just useful approaches for gaining institution and department information is that you can use a search term, like I put in University of Connecticut, CLAS, which is our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I put the word strategic plan. So you can look at any university and just do a search with the university name and put strategic plan, and you'll often surface a strategic plan for a college or a university, or sometimes even a department. And so right here, when we look at CLAS strategic plan 2020-25, we begin to see what their four goals are. And then we can kind of see, like, let's see, I'm applying to positions, let's say in the history department in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I want to get a feel about that alignment with the strategic plan. So just a lot of times people don't think to kind of do this kind of search. It can be really revealing, so highly recommend it. And then similarly, you can do a search like University of Connecticut at a glance, or University of Connecticut fact sheet. So again, name of the university, and then one of these terms, and you'll get a fact sheet about the institution, percentage of international students, percentage of first generation students, percentage of graduate students and undergraduate students, and so forth. So these are just two approaches that can be really useful in revealing some other content about an institution and certainly a department. I'm going to move on here to some considerations. So when you're thinking about alignment with an institution and a department, sometimes you want to be thinking about reputation. This is going to come up later, but really what I like individuals to do is to not just think about this next job, but really the job beyond that, because we know that each experience that we have can be a foundation or kind of the stepping stone or progression for the next job. So reputation is a consideration. The student body may be a consideration. Visa sponsorship might be a consideration. This next one, are you going to be one of many or one of a few? So within a department, is everyone specializing in A and B and you're going to be C? Maybe that sounds great to you, but maybe you're like, I don't really want to be C if everyone is A and B. So again, reading those faculty bios and looking at CVs can help discern some of that. Sometimes a department will indicate whether it's growing, They usually don't say we're declining in enrollment, but they will often say that they're growing, or they have a new innovation lab, or they have new courses or a new major. So that can be a consideration too. Sometimes you can see funding, either faculty that identify funding that they've gotten. Sometimes the department's website will have a nice news section where they're featuring funding that they've received. Also on that sort of news section of a department's website, they'll feature usually colleagues, faculty in the department. They may feature some of the larger initiatives they're involved in. And then, expectations and career path, those are definitely considerations. We can't always learn about those in our initial research of an institution or department, but they're important to have in mind as we progress through as a candidate, through first round interviews. So I'm going to pause and just see if anyone has any questions in relationship to alignment considerations with institutions and departments. And this isn't all inclusive. Certainly you may have some specific considerations that you feel are unique to you as well. The next area of alignment that I'm going to address is with a position. And so in this slide, I have 3 job postings, and they're all in the field of engineering. I wanted to keep them all in the same field because we're going to look at these and kind of extract what we feel is emphasized in each of these. So I'm going to read the first job posting here with the numeral 1. It says the successful candidate is expected to teach undergraduate and graduate chemical engineering courses, develop a sponsored research program, supervise graduate students, collaborate with other faculty, and participate actively in service to the university and the profession. And then it identifies the type of PhD, and it further identifies that applications from women and minorities are especially encouraged. So when we look at this first job posting, what's emphasized? And you can again put in chat, raise your hand. What do you see as emphasized in that first job posting? All right, yeah, full package, research, teaching, but teaching is more specific, subject specialization, those additional sort of tasks, right, of graduate supervision and collaboration, absolutely, yeah. So, this is important in that when students work with me, they'll sometimes ask me, should I even apply to a position? And so then I'll ask them, well, how well aligned do you feel you are? First, let's look at the position. Tell me what stands out for you in terms of how you're reading that job posting. And then, really, how well aligned do you think you are, to the various components? Because we know that there's many components here, right? Yeah, teaching is also listed first. It is true with position descriptions for any of these, really, that usually in the job posting description, it does begin with what the most major focus is of the work that the individual would be doing. So that is correct. What I also know is true is that sometimes hiring committees, the job posting gets announced, and then through the interview process, sometimes the hiring committee actually realizes that, that supervising grad students is important, but maybe it's not as important as collaborating. And so sometimes the job kind of morphs a little, unbeknownst to the person applying, just based on the very nature of interviewing people and the hiring committee kind of figuring out like, what do they really want? All right, so the second one, I'm going to kind of skim through it the way I'm reading it because it's a little longer, but the candidate will contribute to our undergraduate and graduate teaching programs, enhance diversity and excellence of the academic community through a combination of research, teaching, and service. Applicants from all areas of chemical engineering are encouraged to apply. The preference will be given, and then they identify the disciplines where preference will be given, and then the successful candidate will develop strong externally funded program with opportunity to collaborate with faculty in other disciplines, right? And then this one goes on to say, highly qualified candidates will have this exceptional record of teaching and research, established record of extramural funded research, demonstrated interest in collaborative research, and may be considered for senior level appointment. So again, you know, what stands out? Go ahead and pop in chat. You know, the word collaborate comes up a lot in this one. Let's see, yep, perhaps looking for a more senior person, looking for someone who's had grants. Yep, definitely. Yeah, great. Established record, right? Yep, external funding. Yep, very good, good. And I think, you know, in working with a student, what might get missed here when the student reads the posting is that collaborate with faculty in other disciplines. And that would be a real way that someone, like, if that resonates with you, then that's something, and maybe you've even done that before, then that's something that you could really leverage in an application. And then the last one, we'll just kind of breeze through that one. Candidate selection is weighted. You're telling you right up front, this is weighted in general toward the potential impact and innovation of the proposed research program. So this one is clearly research focused, might not have any teaching. And, you know, if you don't know what the kind of, you might want to see what sort of innovative things are already going on at that institution in that department to further understand your alignment with the position. So there is a bit of like reading between the lines on some of these, and definitely looking at how many times something's emphasized. Like if collaborated comes up 3 times, they're really looking for that collaboration piece. It's not that they're just putting that word in there, but it really does signal that it's something that they're looking for. So yeah, I just did a little highlight in there with some of the terms and phrases that seem to jump out for me. All right, so your alignment with positions within the US, the faculty titles are not universally defined. And so here again, this is another bit of research that you can do. You could put in, for example, faculty titles, University of Connecticut, and using that search term, I was directed to this faculty titles dictionary at the University of Connecticut. And so you could do like a similar kind of search with that faculty titles and the name of the university to surface some sort of dictionary glossary. And I've done this like with other names of universities, and I get directed to these kinds of lists where it will tell, you know, what a lecturer is and what a researcher in residence is, because that's going to be different at one institution from another institution within the US. Other considerations is the duration of the position. I have students that come to me and say, you know I only want a 1 to 3 year position. So that might be more of a visiting or research in residence kind of position. salary. Sometimes it's identified in the job posting, broader compensation. Sometimes you can find out a little bit more about that by going on to the human resources page for the university. Progression sometimes is in the job posting, sometimes it's not. And then ultimately, as you enter into more of the interview process, you get a chance to really learn more about the percentage of time that you'd be spending on all of those things that they want you to do, right? Like they get one of our earlier job postings had, the service to the institution and the profession and the mentoring and the teaching and some research. And that's all great, but maybe you want to teach more than do research, or maybe you want to be at an institution where there is less pressure around gaining grants or less pressure around publishing. So as you enter in more fully into the candidacy, that's where you can begin to ask questions and learn more about the percentage of time that would be required for some of these things. And again, within the US, it's extremely variable, variable within a job posting within a department, variable among departments, variable among institutions. And then to drill down a little bit more, considerations of department chair. Is this a person that I feel can support me in my work? Colleagues, that came up in the chat, kinds of courses that you would be teaching. And then things like resources. Will you have what you need to do your best work at that institution? Do you have the lab space, the equipment, and so forth, that allows you to do your best work? All right, I am going to move on to our next area of alignment, which I combine geographic area and community. And the question for you is, what comes to mind when you think of quality of life considerations? What would you need or desire in your geographic area, so larger geographic area, and within your community? And go ahead and pop some of those thoughts in chat. So you have your work life, and you have life outside of work. What do you need? What do you need to be well aligned, to feel good, to do your best work? Safety, so safe community and gathering. Yeah, cost of living, social and health services, absolutely. Yeah. 12-month contract with some flexibility. Ethnic diversity in your community. Yeah. Beautiful. All right, so I have your list and some. Sometimes climate, weather can be a factor. Certainly with certain health issues that can be a factor. Political environment can be really important as well. Like if I have identities that I want to feel comfortable sharing in my environment, then the political environment of my community could be really, really important. I've had students that have applied for positions and have thought that all public transportation is the same, meaning like good. And in the US, there are areas without really any public transportation. And so they've applied to positions and then realized like, oh, there isn't any public transportation to speak of, or it will take me 2 hours to get to the university or whatever, college, usually a college, not a university in that case, like in a more rural setting. And then they just realize like, well, I don't drive, I'm not going to drive, and this really isn't going to work for me. Sometimes being close to an international airport can be really important to individuals that see family and have family that come and see them. Faith-based organizations and communities can be important, affinity groups, cultural activities, medical care. I've had individuals that have needed to be near a major hospital because they have a chronic condition. So that's like top of their considerations. School system for either family members or children. Sometimes familiar foods can be really important. The two resources that I have here is citydata.com. That is a site that is specific to the US, and you can look at city information. And then Teleport is a site that you can use worldwide. And so it will tell you some of the information that you may want to know as you're looking at different opportunities at different institutions. The final area of alignment that I want to focus on is this idea of future plans. So this goes back to my comment in the beginning, where it's not just about this next job, it's the job beyond that, right? Stepping stones, building blocks, foundation, whatever you want to call it. The idea is, yes, you're going to focus on the here and now, but you're going to focus on the here and now within the context of what the next thing is for you. So that's just sort of a frame of mind, like a question that you can ask yourself when you're applying to things, or at least when you're going through interviews. Really be thinking about, is this opportunity fulfilling and or positioning me for what I envision next in my future career goals. Other things to think about are like future plans. Do you have a family? Are you growing a family? Do you have family that's going to reside with you? Do you have elder care that you're, individuals in your life that you're caring for? So these kinds of things can influence and contribute to decisions about future plans. Are there individuals in your unit, family unit, that are going to be pursuing education, either other advanced degrees or children in educational systems, and then the larger financial goals. So again, there's, some other areas to consider here, but these are some of the more major, certainly. All right, so I've given you a lot to think about, I think. And what I think we'll do is we'll do this in a large group, not small groups, but large groups. And I'd like to give you time to just reflect on one or two of the prompts or three of the prompts, whatever works for you. And the great thing about sort of creating this place and space for reflection is, number one, we usually don't find the time to reflect. And then if you're comfortable sharing what you're thinking about, that is often really great, because as you hear yourself talk about what's important to you, that can help affirm the way you kind of do your research and the kinds of questions you ask and the kinds of things that you kind of look for in the research that you're doing about the institutions and the department and the position and the geographic area, community, and so forth. So I'd like to just pause and let me just look here. Why don't we'll take like 5 minutes, and you can just think, write down, however you want to approach this, your responses to a couple of the prompts here. So the first prompt, what do you believe are your top 3 alignment areas for focus right now? And then that idea of future forward, how about in 3 years? Are they exactly the same, or do you think something like one of those areas might become more of a priority? And then maybe if you're within the US, which types of institutions and roles are of greatest interest to you? Or you don't have to be in the US to answer that question, but I know that my resources are US focused. And then which considerations do you wish to understand better? Maybe something surfaced for you today where you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that is important. So, what do you want to understand better so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence? Like I was working with a student and they wanted to understand the kind of rankings of faculty positions in the US better because they just didn't even know what to apply to. And then if you want to write down what you feel are must-haves and nice-to-haves as priorities, you could certainly do some of that, generate a list, and just honor that like where you are today is going to be different than where you are maybe 30 days from now, right? So I will stop talking and we'll just pause for about 5 minutes, and I'd love to have you just spend a little time on the reflection prompts. All right. I don't know if this happens to you, but when I stop like that, it amazes me. Like, wow, that was 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And I'm just blown away by kind of like how much I can accomplish in that short period of time. It's just really about carving out that place and space to do that. And wow, there we go. Thank you, Christopher. Must-haves, compatibility with partner's job. Yeah, that's true. In that geographic location piece, I have also had individuals who will apply for a position and then realize like, oh, my partner is in the insurance industry and there are no places like that around. So then it, may turn into that person getting a remote job or something like that. But yeah, definitely compatibility with partner's job. And then within the US context, you can put in when you apply for a position that you're looking for like a partner hire or a partner consideration for a hire if that individual is also in academia. Opportunity to research at least 33% of the time. Wow, really like that specificity. That's good. Resources for children, quality education. Hope to have compatibility with colleagues in the department, respected, informed conversation, pleasant climate. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yep. And having a list like this is great. You can add to it, you can take things off of it if things change, but just kind of having that as a focal point can be really good as you advance through the job search process. I'd love for someone else to share if they're comfortable doing so. Could be a different prompt. And these are definitely prompts that you could share with a lab mate, a peer, a colleague, where you could kind of work on this, where you share with each other. I do feel strongly about articulating these things out loud, as opposed to just kind of keeping them in your brain or keeping them on a sheet of paper, because when you articulate them out loud, they become more real. You hear yourself saying those things, which just kind of ingrains them a little bit more. So I do encourage you to kind of use this as a launching point for some conversations. So in wrapping up, just some final thoughts about considerations and alignment. You really want to treat your academic job search like a research project. And I think you could kind of see that today in what I was sharing in terms of like the different layers of research that you can do, looking at 30,000 feet, but then kind of drilling down and looking with more specificity at institutions, departments, and positions. We know that research yields new knowledge. We know that it illuminates opportunities, and we know that it can really inform decisions. So like, why wouldn't you be conducting your academic job search as a research project? That's really what I hope for individuals to do. Definitely talk with others and share some of what you're learning and also gathering input. Utilize all of the resources that you have to discern fact from fiction. And so I have an example of an individual that was applying for a job within a department, and they knew someone who was like I want to say like a visiting faculty person in that department, and that visiting faculty person was not part of the hiring committee. And so they were able to talk with that visiting faculty member and learn a little bit more about the nuances of the department. So, I think it's great when you do have individuals that you can connect with and ask questions. That can be really, really helpful. And again, that it might be their opinion, but you're getting a little closer to the source of the information about the department or the institution. And then inventory what you're learning and make adjustments along the way, what you thought was initially important. So it might be really important that there are insurance companies in the city where I'm working because my partner works in the insurance industry. That could be really important today. But then maybe I find out that my partner gets a remote position, 100% remote, and all of a sudden that's not important. So just treat this kind of as a living, breathing process and recognize that things do change and can change and will change. So I have a question here. What would be an example of fact versus fiction? So, like when you look at a website of an institution, everybody's smiling and it's always a sunny day, right? So fact or fiction, yes, we hope that people are always smiling, but, there might be rainy days. And I don't mean it just in terms of weather. A department might say something like, oh, we're, keen on innovation and we're growing in leaps and bounds, and that might be on the department's website. But in talking to, a friend that I know works in that department or one of the departments in the same sort of area of the institution, they might say, oh yeah, they write that on their website, but really, they're just adding one course. So that's what I mean about the fact from fiction piece. Does that help? Great. Okay, Sarah.
So thank you so much, Kay. And
You're welcome.
To everybody who came today, thank you for taking the time. We will have a recording of this video that we'll share. And if there are any additional academic trainings that you're interested in having, please just send me an email. I'm putting my email in the chat now. We have a few events scheduled, crafting a teaching philosophy statement, writing a diversity statement, and a few others as well that are coming up. And thank you again, everyone, and thank you, Kay.
Thanks for contributing as well. It's always helpful when people are willing to share. So thank you for those who shared, and thanks for having me, Sarah. Really, really enjoyed my time.